Welcome back to the final part, 3 of 3 with Armstrong Williams. One could argue that just like there are fanatics who abuse Islam, there are fanatics who use and abuse Christianity, let alone democracy. What have we done in the name of democracy?
Well, you're going to always have your Timothy McVeighs. And there will always be.
Well, I mean, our policies in Africa. Our policies towards mainland China, now that they are the new hegemon.
But, I'm glad you brought that up, because you know what? President Obama is still the titular head of the greatest superpower the world has ever known. And those policies that you've just spoken about are no different whether Obama is president, Bush or president. There are some things they just have to do and turn a blind eye to. It's not going to change. America having its military all over the world, policing and monitoring these countries, being the big bad wolf waving the stick. America needs to get its butt out of some of these countries and focus on what's going on in America. I don't believe that conservatism has anything with spreading our military might around the world. Let these people fend for themselves. You know why they're in these countries? Because they're protecting their own interests. And their interest is for them to be subjected to these bloody dictators, to many of the things that we abhor in terms of our rule of law in our very own country. So yes, America. And some people could even accuse our country of its own brand of terrorism, some of the things that they've done in these countries.
When you look at, I'm hearing, and you would know better than me presumably, but Cuba, maybe the borders are going to be open, that we can now go to Cuba?
Yes, and that should have happened long ago.
It should have happened a long time ago?
Long ago? Yes.
You wouldn't...
The best way to change someone that you perceive as an enemy is open up the doors and allow freedom, allow our goods, allow our thoughts, our entertainment, our news, enter that country and let people decide for themselves. It's already happening. You don't have to raise one arm. You don't have to fire one bullet. Just use the power of the word, the freedom of speech, and using the things that have made us great to just open up the floodgates and just go in Cuba, and within a year you'll see a major change. Okay. It'll never be the same.
Your predictions, future?
President Barack Obama is going to be a one-term president. The Democrats are going to be annihilated in November, not because they're Democrats, but because they're in power. And if the Republicans were to win in November, to gain the House and Senate back, it would be the kiss of death for them. Because you know why? If they do, then President Barack Obama will have a second term. Because they can no longer blame the Democrats for what's wrong with this country, the economy, the lack of jobs, terrorism. They will have full ownership of our bureaucracy. The best thing that can happen to them in November is for the Democrats to win and for the Republicans to allow it to continue, because 2 years later the president will be defeated. Remember what happened with Bill Clinton. He did not gain his voice and become a centrist until he lost the House and the Senate, and Newt Gingrich became the Speaker of the House. He was able to dump the Speaker of the House at the time and the Senate Majority Leader, found his own voice, and he was able to be reelected as President of the United States. That's President Barack Obama's only hope, is that if the Republicans win both the House and the Senate in November.
In the state of Maryland, we have a gubernatorial election come November. Bob Ehrlich is going to try again against the man who unseated him, Democrat Martin O'Malley.
He doesn't have to try too hard. There's a angst against Democrats in this country. Not Republicans, Democrats, because they're in power. And it's sweeping. It's a brew. And
after 8 years of George Bush, now you got a minute and a half of Barack Obama, and everything is swinging back. I say they're one and the same.
Haven't you seen the swings firsthand? Were you not shocked that Ted Kennedy lost his seat to a Republican? Were you not stunned? That was a sign. Don't ignore it. You ignore it at your own peril. The American people are angry. They want to fire somebody. And their casualties right now are Democrats. So I'll say to Bob Ehrlich, it's a good time to run. All he has to do is separate himself from the message of the party, define his message, talk about the things that people care about, health care, these taxes, what's happening to small business owners, the BP fiasco in the Gulf Coast, and talk about terrorism. Those are the issues that Americans care about. The sad thing about President Barack Obama is that I don't think sometimes he understands who we are as Americans. I mean, he ignored the will of the people.
And what is the will of the people? Clearly the will of the people was no more of the 8 years of Bush when gas was $5 a gallon. My gas and electric bill was every bit of $17 million for 1 month. And, I mean, everything was expensive.
The will of the people.
And a war. We're in Iraq. What were we in Iraq for? Because he beat his daddy up?
The will of the people is less government intrusion in our lives. Protect us from terrorism. And the one issue I didn't mention, I was saving it for last, is immigration reform. If you think for 1 minute that the people in Arizona got it wrong, you just wait and see how that law sweeps across the nation.
Some would argue that anyone who came to this country by boat is an immigrant. The people who are already here that have now been categorized as illegal, well, they are the indigenous peoples.
You know what? That's a ludicrous argument. You and I go through airports often.
They do work that we're not willing to do anymore.
We'll do it legally. Okay?
What is legal anymore?
The rule of law.
Iran-Contra crack. Colonel Oliver North, Highway Rick, and the implementation of crack cocaine by the government in the majority of black cities across America. Was that legal? Was that moral?
It's a nice soundbite to get us off the subject. But remember this. You cannot no longer blame Iran-Contra. Obama can no longer use President Bush. Bush is gone and forgotten. Obama has taken on so much and has done so much that has been so overwhelming that within 1 year people have forgotten 8 years of George Bush.
No.
Yes.
I didn't forget the $5 a gallon.
Yes.
It's up to $2.79 right now.
Well, you're an exception to this. They have forgotten about George Bush. Barack Obama has total ownership of the government and everything that comes with it. And he has already started paying the price for it, unless he can make a radical change. And homie, don't think so.
Any final thoughts?
That was my final
All right. Thank you for joining us, the one and only Mr. Armstrong Williams, my friend for a long, long time and supporter of BMORENEWS.com. My name is Donnie Glover. Thank you for joining us. Special thank you to Bobby Marvin of HughVoices.com. Keep watching Be More News, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. Oh, by the way, special thank you to the one and only Nancy McPhail. See you next time.